Now, what you've all been waiting for is really the stories from faculty and professional development providers on how they've been preparing in-service and pre-service educators. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to chunk the videos into two sections. And in this first section, I just want to introduce our folks. We'll have Mary Little, Dina Slanda, and Cynthia Pearl from the University of Central Florida. We'll have Sam Gessel, who's at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and actually was a former NCII, which is a National Center on Leadership and Intensive Intervention scholar. And then finally, this section will close with Bill Resplica, who we mentioned earlier was a DBI champion for his tireless efforts in leading multiple districts. And he's currently at the University of Washington, Boston. So I'm gonna let Eliza get the video started and just sit back, relax, and enjoy the film.
Thank you for this opportunity to highlight our collaboration with our colleagues at the National Center on Intensive Interventions. We are a team from the University of Central Florida. My name is Mary Little. I'm Principal Investigator of Project Bridges.
And I'm Cynthia Pearl, Co-Principal Investigator, Project Bridges.
And I'm Dina Slanda, Project Coordinator.
Project Bridges was funded from January 2015 through December 2019 by the Office of Special Education Programs. It's a personnel preparation grant. We focused on preparing graduate students with knowledge and skills to meet the academic and behavioral needs of students with severe and persistent needs. What we did was provide tuition to support master's degrees in exceptional student education that incorporated UCF's Intervention Specialist Certificate. Over the 5 years of funding, we prepared 65 scholars. 32% of those scholars were from underrepresented groups. 37% were employed in urban school districts, and 42% were employed in Title I schools. An innovative graduate certificate was co-constructed by faculty in special education, mathematics, reading, and school psychology to enhance the collaborative knowledge, skills, and authentic performance tasks within the 4 courses in this program.
One of the collaborative performance tasks was the database individualization. These tasks were co-constructed by national experts, faculty, and members of our project advisory committee. These tasks also met the advanced professional standards of an intervention specialist from the Council for Exceptional Children and included evidence-based practices, research, and resources from the National Center on Intensive Interventions, as well as other OSEP-funded centers. Specifically, our scholars within each of their courses completed a database individualization project in reading, mathematics, and/or behavior as one of their authentic collaborative performance tasks. In addition, scholars developed, implemented, and evaluated an MTSS school enhancement project based upon the vetted RTI Fidelity of Implementation rubric and additional resources from NCII. During their initial course, scholars collaborated with their school administrators, with their faculty and parents to complete the multiple phases of school reform to implement DBI within their classrooms and schools with high fidelity. When we completed research related to the results over the 5 years of implementation, our scholars very clearly identified the essential areas and components of the DBI process within the MTSS reform and enhancement process to assure that DBI was implemented with high fidelity within their classrooms and schools. As you can see from the data displayed, there were multiple revisions made both in the infrastructure for MTSS as well as the multi-level instruction of evidence-based practices and other areas. Ultimately, over the 5 years of the project, we were thrilled that 65 of all of our scholars completed these DBI projects and completed fully implemented school improvement plans focused on enhancing the MTSS structure within each of their schools. Multiple scholars from our project were also awarded mini grants to continue this research, and all of them reported increased knowledge and skills related to evidence-based practices and data-informed instruction and intervention. In addition, surveys completed by their principals also verified the implementation of these evidence-based practices.
Moving forward, we are shifting gears. With Project Bridges 2.0, we took a new look at enhancing outcomes for students with high intensity needs by the interdisciplinary preparation of students in special education and students seeking their degrees in school psychology by providing interdisciplinary and interprofessional collaboration to earn a collaborative intervention specialist graduate certificate where there's shared coursework and application-based experiences within schools and clinical settings. Additionally, we developed Project Speech, where students seeking their degree in exceptional student education take coursework alongside students that are seeking their degree in communication sciences and disorders to earn a graduate certificate as an interdisciplinary language and literacy interventionist. To learn more about each of these programs, we encourage you to visit Bridges 2.0 website or the Project Speech website by holding your phone up and scanning each of these QR codes that will take you directly there. Feel free to also send us an email at bridges@ucf.edu or projectspeech@ucf.edu.
Thank you so much for joining us to learn more about our projects.
Thank you.
So my experience with NCII began in my PhD program at Vanderbilt. I had been accepted as an NCLII scholar. So that would be the National Center on Leadership for Intensive Intervention. And basically that was just my funding stream to be able to have my PhD program funded. Through NCLII, I got to meet a whole consortium of individuals who were in other universities. And we really dove into what it meant to be future leaders of intensive intervention. A lot of our supplemental curriculum that we learned through that experience included NCII materials, NCII experts, and tons of faculty that have been part of the kind of building from the ground up all those resources that exist. At the same time, I was doing research projects and kind of honing my own research interest centered on this idea of intensive intervention and centered on this idea especially of data-based individualization. That started with some initial research projects in my doc program, and then kind of I was able to get my hands in to some interviews with NCII schools that have been part of technical assistance and be able to have those interviews and talk about sort of what were those lessons learned through the experiences working with NCII. That really helped me see the value of NCII within the schools on the ground, separate from what I was doing at that level of kind of research work and kind of the more sort of bird's eye view I was getting as a doc student. From there, I was invited with my advisor at Vanderbilt, Dr. Chris Lemons, to co-author a chapter in the book, Essentials of Intensive Intervention. And so we centered that chapter on DBI for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, which was a great way to kind of really enact DBI through that lens of reading intervention, but especially targeting those students for whom teachers might feel the greatest sense of wondering of how DBI gets enacted with that group separately. And that lends itself really nicely to what I'm now doing. So I graduated from Vanderbilt and then was kind of moved into a tenure track position here at UNC Charlotte. And at UNC Charlotte, I teach the assessment course for the undergrads and grad certs. And then I also teach an advanced literacy course in their master's program. And I have embedded NCII work in both of those courses because I find that it is so valuable. So I'll start with kind of talking about our assessment in special education. So for those students, those are pre-service teachers who are getting their initial licensure. And when I use the resources in that course, I'm really focusing in on helping them understand the ways to navigate the tools charts, to understand that they need to be really intentional about thinking, okay, what is the purpose of my assessment? What process lends itself to serving that purpose? And what tools help align with that process? And having that alignment of purpose, process, and tools where they come together really, really beautifully and in synchrony can help us create systems that work really well for our students. And so for the undergrads and graduate certificate students, they explore the tools charts for universal screening and for progress monitoring. They also, we end the class kind of bringing it all together and talking about database individualization, or DBI, as that system to helping understand student progress and helping understand ways that we can really, really target our instruction and make those database decisions in the moment of that cyclical nature of teaching, assessing, and then kind of reframing what you're doing depending on student need. So part of that final unit also includes a deep dive into some great chapters from the Essentials of Intensive Intervention book. We also use the Taxonomy of Intervention webinars that are available, where students dive into one of those to kind of see it enacted for reading or behavior or math. Hands down, I've now taught that course, gosh, I've taught now 7 sections of that course over my 2 years being here. And that is the favorite portion of the course for all students, without a doubt, because it really gives them a way to kind of see the way that this could look in the action of their classroom itself. So then for advanced literacy, this is a brand new course that I just started teaching this spring. And these are master's students who have already taken foundational reading. Most of them have already taken sort of the foundations of reading test that's required for licensure here in North Carolina, but they're choosing to go on to their master's and they're choosing to take an advanced literacy course. The way that I've enacted that is basically really diving in to teaching literacy with a lens of, how do I make adaptations to my instruction when things aren't working? So taking that step up from the basics of what are the areas of reading and what does that really mean and look like, but diving really deeply into specific strategies that they can use. And then the most important integration with NCII resources is the fact that they do have a clinical project for that course where they have to follow a student, and we use every single DBI paperwork you could ask for. We have DBI meetings. We are our own little data teams where they bring up their case studies. They bring up their student that they're targeting. In addition to bringing up their student, we have our meetings where it's that initial kind of pre-referral and then referral meeting. We have progress monitoring meetings across time. And throughout all of that, they're developing intervention plans. They're developing adaptation plans. They're thinking critically about how that's going to be enacted and how that aligns across each of the dimensions of adaptations that they could be adapting their instruction. And they're supporting each other using things like the guided questions that you can ask for more information within DBI meetings, and using resources like the suggested list of intensifications using the strategy checklist.
Hello, I'm Bill Rasplica, and I'm the program coordinator for the Enhancing Capacity for Special Education Leadership program at the University of Washington, Bothell. And almost 3 years ago, I retired as the Executive Director for Learning Support Services at the Franklin Pierce School District in Tacoma, Washington. And I just want to thank NCII for inviting me to participate today. So let me share my screen, and what I'd like to talk about is just preparing special education leaders to support implementation of intensive intervention. And so the Excel program was originally funded through an OSEP leadership grant written by Tom Bellamy about 10 years ago. It's now supported by the Washington State Office for the Superintendent of Public Instruction. They took over the funding for the program because they were so impressed with the outcomes that they were seeing. Excel is a 2-year program to prepare new local special education administrators that we've abbreviated to LSEAs, and it's designed for statewide access and participation, and we're currently completing the first year of cohort 5. So I wanted to share with you the vision of the program and the goals of the program. And it's to enhance the capacity of local special ed administrators to support academic and social learning needs of students. So compliance is important, and we certainly focus in on compliance, but what we want to impart to prospective administrators is that it's not business as usual, and we want to give them the skills for them to bring science into the schoolhouse. So if you take a look at that second goal, to graduate new LSEAs who are able to make rapid, significant, and sustained improvements. And so one of those improvements is intensive intervention and the DBI process. Excel has about 27 leadership outcomes, but I've isolated these that I think have a particular relationship to the implementation of intensive intervention. And that's organizational architecture, complex problem solving, stream of improvements, workplace norms, multi-tiered systems for intensification of instruction, and program and tools for intensifying instruction. And those are all outcomes that we emphasize in the program. We also talk about organizational change and DBI implementation as adaptive work. So, the first stage of that change is making definitions for the purpose, structure, culture of your department or district, and then to create a narrative that explains why that change is necessary. Why is the implementation of intensive intervention in the DBI process necessary and important? So you can communicate the necessity for that change to others in the district. And then the second stage of that adaptive work is deploying that solution. So when adaptive work is involved, staff may have to change their skills, their priorities, their attitudes, their behaviors, and probably most importantly, how they work together. So you need to set forth those workplace norms that are needed in order to make that change. So to date, Excel has trained approximately 65 school district special education administrative candidates who now have the knowledge of intensive intervention, and they're better prepared to implement DBI in their school districts. So let me stop sharing. So again, I hope this was helpful. And I want to again thank NCII for asking me to participate today.
Thanks, Bill. And if you notice the chat box, there seemed to be a competition between Sam and I's energy level. And I will say Sam will definitely win. I sort of hit my peak maybe a couple of years ago. I'm on the downward spiral. So I want to introduce our next set of DBI Rock Stars, and they will all be familiar to you. We'll start off with Sarah Powell, who is at the University of Texas in Austin. That'll be followed by Brad Thord, who is a systems implementation coach from the Oregon Response to Instruction and Intervention. That will be followed by Adria Truckenmiller, professor of special education at Michigan State University, and our own superstar, Nicole Bucca, who is supporting the Rhode Island statewide scale up of intensive intervention. And if you haven't checked out the learning management system that she is supporting and developing, I highly recommend. All right, Eliza, let's see.
Hi, happy anniversary to the National Center on Intensive Intervention. My name is Sarah Powell. I'm an associate professor at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm really excited today to share a recent joint effort between the NCII and the Progress Center. With this joint effort, we conducted a course study on the NCII's Intensive Intervention in Mathematics course, and I was able to co-lead this effort with Kat Fannenstiel and Shaylin Quinn from the American Institutes for Research. 2 years ago, I had the privilege of working with the NCII to develop an Intensive Intervention in Mathematics course. This course included 8 modules, which you can see here, and in each module, participants could learn about the essential components to intensive intervention, instruction, assessment, and decision-making. We recorded 3 videos for each module, and the modules have embedded activities in which participants can learn a lot about all of these components related to mathematics intensive intervention, such as database decision-making, administering progress monitoring assessments, using math manipulatives, making adaptations to an instructional platform, implementing an intervention with fidelity, among others. Now, we undertook the course study to invite participants from across the United States to work through these modules with our team. For the course study, we conducted 7 sessions, which you can see here. Each session lasted 1 hour, but participants put in probably between 3 and 5 hours of course study in between each session. And while we met as a group in the sessions, we would always review each module. We had lots of discussion, either as a big group or in breakout rooms. And we also always had a very active discussion in the chat box. And we often completed activities using Google Jamboard so participants could share resources with each other. Now, speaking of participants, we placed an open call for participants on the NCII Twitter feed, and we had over 40 applicants for the first cohort. We selected 26 applicants for cohort 1, and these 26 applicants came from 12 states across the United States. And these participants represented a wide variety of jobs within a school or district or state. So we had a general education teacher, we had several special education teachers participate. We had people who acted as interventionists, as math coaches and math coordinators. We had both district level and state level multi-tiered systems of support trainers, and we had several faculty or professors join us in the course study. Now, at the end of the course study, which we just finished last week, we asked participants what they thought. Here are comments from 3 of our participants. One of our first participants said that they liked the free access to the videos that is on the NCII website, and it is free for everyone. And they really liked learning about strategies that they plan to share with others. Another participant said that they liked being able to connect with people from all over the United States and getting different ideas from them. This person really liked the collaboration and the conversation. And a third participant said that they really enjoyed having that live conversation with the group, and they thought the structure of the course and the diversity of the group was really great. So thank you to the National Center on Intensive Intervention and the Progress Center for supporting this course study. Our participants learned a lot and they seem to enjoy the course study immensely. We hope to continue this important work by recruiting future cohorts to participate in the course study for the Intensive Intervention and Mathematics course. So happy anniversary to the NCII. Here's to many more years of leading national conversations related to intensive intervention.
Hello, and happy 10th birthday, NCII. My name is Brad Thord, Systems Implementation Coach for the Oregon Response for Instruction Intervention Project. I am honored to be with you today to celebrate and to share with you my story of implementing intensive interventions into my work. I was first introduced to NCII's work in 2017 when I was the principal of Klatskanai Elementary School, a small rural elementary school in the northwest corner of Oregon. Up to that point, we had been building integrated systems for reading and behavior for over 5 years. In 2017, we had the honor to join Oregon Response to Instruction Intervention for a 2-year grant project to build K-2 math supports across the continuum. At the time, NCII was working with Oregon Response for Instruction Intervention to improve their teaming and support structures, primarily at the Tier 3 level. Our work with this grant project and Oregon Response for Instruction Intervention allowed us to revitalize, rebuild, and refocus how we were teaming with data across the continuum, primarily focused on Tier 3 supports. At Klatskanai, our Tier 3 support program was known as, our teaming structure was known as IPS, Individual Problem Solving. The most memorable case that we ever dealt with, I believe, in Klatskanai through IPS was my friend named Angela. Angela was born with a port wine stain that impacted much of her brain prior to kindergarten. Before she entered school, Angela had half of her brain removed to reduce the impact of this port wine stain that was going to impact her for the rest of her life. The part of the brain that was removed from Angela was the part that really focused on language processing. Prior to school, nobody thought that Angela would become a functional reader. And at the start of school, Angela dealt with a lack of self-regulation skills that allowed her to grow as a student. Through this process, we were able to build a teaming structure that focused on building some instructional support plans for individuals using data-based individualization, DBI. When we put Angela through our IPS process using data-based individualization, it really allowed her team to come together, use what we knew about Angela, leverage her strengths, and build an instructional support plan that was going to allow Angela to grow. This united front in this plan that we built for Angela really improved how she her performance and her outcomes. She began to build basic reading skills, and her self-regulation strategies grew. She's now becoming a basic functional reader due to this process, due to this teaming structure that we built together. Prior to this, nobody believed Angela would become a functional reader. Currently, NCII's work is further influencing what I do in my work as a systems implementation coach for Oregon Response to Instruction Intervention. The work with NCII and Oregon Response to Instruction Intervention has drastically changed how we, as a technical assistant team, support our school districts here in Oregon. We would love to embed the idea and the mindset of data-based individualization across the continuum when we're building structures and processes to review the whole, the group, and the individual. Next year, I'll be taking the role of director of the Oregon Response to Intervention Project, and I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about how DBI and NCII's work can continue to make what we do here in Oregon that much better. We appreciate the support and the work that NCI has provided to us as a technical assistant team, to me as a school leader, and also to me as an individual. I want to say once again, happy birthday to NCII, and I'm honored to be here. And once again, thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Hello, I'm Dr. Adria Truckenmiller, an assistant professor of special education at Michigan State University. I'm going to talk about a guidance document that the Michigan Department of Education commissioned to help school districts better use assessment. The Michigan Department of Education gathered a group of literacy experts, assessment experts, and professional development experts to create this guidance document. And they asked nationally renowned assessment system expert Jim Pellegrino to be leading this. I'm going to talk about the section of this guidance document that I co-authored with my colleague, Dr. Ensu Cho. In this section, we aim to provide practical guidance to schools about which assessment data was going to lead to better outcomes for all students. We started with a common problem that we've observed in schools. The state of Michigan requires that all students in grades K through 3 be screened in reading, but the selection of the reading screening assessments did not line up well with the decisions that the schools actually wanted to make. Schools were selecting a suite of assessments and then telling teachers and administrators to make decisions based on that data. Unfortunately, this leads to some abuse and mistrust of assessment data, essentially putting the cart before the horse, the cart being the assessment tool and the horse being the decision that is made based on that data. So our aim was to help students first identify the decisions or the questions that they're asking first, and then select the best assessment results to line up with those questions. We acknowledge that different types of decisions requires different types of data. For example, a high stakes decision like special education identification would require multiple data points that all have high reliability, validity, and fairness, or alternatively called absence of bias. Lower stakes decisions may not have such formal requirements. So we point to the National Center for Intensive Intervention's criteria for the different levels of reliability, validity that is needed to support different types of decisions. We also, of course, point to the NCII assessment tools charts as an excellent reference specifically for screening decisions. However, we found that schools are also using these tools to make many more decisions than just screening decisions. And we wanted to expand upon the NCII resources to the other decisions that schools are wanting to make. We created a framework for thinking about how you would line up those specific decisions with specific users within the school, with the level of technical adequacy that's needed for those decisions, and then the constructs that are measured within the assessment. We really believe that a shared in-depth knowledge of reading development is needed for understanding reading assessment, and that the same is true probably for other content areas as well. So for reading, we created this illustration to show that different domains of reading would be measured and used for different decisions. For example, the larger grain size domains like reading comprehension and reading fluency can only be used for decisions like deciding which students need supplemental instruction, but that smaller grain sizes are needed to determine what kind of content is needed in that intervention that's becoming increasingly more intensive. Finally, we provide a table that aligns these pieces, the specific decisions, with example assessments that meet the technical adequacy requirements determined by NCII, and we point out which users need to have access to that specific assessment information. You can freely download this document from the website, and our team at MSU is continuing to work on related projects, including our doctoral students who are part of the National Center for Leadership on Intensive Intervention.